Hello and welcome to our first session on crowdfunding for arts, and this is all about planning your project. So if you've never crowdfunded before, or perhaps even if you've just had a whirl at it before and you're interested in finding out a little bit more, this is the right place for you. So first of all, a quick introduction. My name's Sammy Morger. I'm part of the team here at crowdfunder.co.uk. We're the UK's largest rewards-based crowdfunding platform, and I'm broadcasting live today from Crowdfunder HQ down in Newquay in Cornwall. So a little bit of a refresher, first of all, of what we're talking about when we're talking about crowdfunding. Now, you may have heard of a few different types of crowdfunding. You may have heard of equity or perhaps peer-to-peer lending, but specifically today, we're talking about rewards crowdfunding, which is actually really, really simple. So I'm going to explain firstly by a bit of an example. So we have Phil on the left-hand side, there he is, from Leeds Bread Co-op. Now, Phil was looking to open a bakery. He was about £8,000 short of the money that he needed in order to open and finish fitting out the bakery. He went and looked for a loan, wasn't able to get a loan, and had used all of the savings and money that he had up until that point. So what he did instead was he decided to crowdfund for that money. Now, over 49 days, he raised £8,690 from 144 people in his community. So not only did he have the money at the end of the period, but he actually also had 144 potential future customers who already knew about his business and were supporting what it is that he wanted to do. And what kind of things they were getting in return? Well, they were getting things like a loaf of bread every week for a year, perhaps, or perhaps an invitation to a baking masterclass, or maybe even something special like a celebration cake for a birthday or for a wedding. So there's no exchange of ownership at all. People don't get their money back. They don't get any sort of shares in the business or in any part of the project. It's literally that straight two-way exchange, the reward for that contribution of money. So why do people crowdfund? And of course, the funding is an obvious part, it's in the name, and that's definitely a factor for a lot of people who run a crowdfunding project. But actually, some of these other things are very much a part of that decision as well. That first one, crowd validation, is really key for a lot of projects, particularly if it's something new that you're running a crowdfunding project for. So what it allows you to do is to find out if people are actually interested in making your idea happen. Is there a need for it? Are people going to fund it? And that's a really great way of finding that out very early stage before going ahead, investing lots of time, energy, money into something like, for example, opening a bakery, only to find out that actually no one's really interested in it. So it's a great way of validating your idea. And you'll also find, whilst running a crowdfunding project, that you'll be shouting about your project the loudest and proudest from the rooftops that you ever have done before. So that awareness around what you're doing, you'll really see that rise. You'll be engaging with more people and perhaps even across a wider sort of breadth of different audiences too. Another great thing that happens when you're finished running your crowdfunding project is that those supporters who have actually backed you and contributed at this early stage tend to go on to be your strongest advocates. They're people who will continue to engage with the project, continue to spread the word and tell everyone about how great it is, and continue to be your customers as well, for example. Second to last, we have unlocking future funding. So particularly if you're thinking about applying for grants or perhaps for loans in the future, having a successful crowdfund in your back pocket is a massive plus when you're talking to banks or to funding bodies about your project. And finally, of course, we have the extra funding that you can access through Crowdfunder. And we're going to come on to that in a little bit more detail in just a moment. Before we do, we're going to quickly look at why do people pledge? And I think it's really important to understand this if you are running a crowdfunding project. What are people's motivation for supporting you? Now, we can split it into two main camps, but of course, there is that crossover in the middle. So first one being that they believe in your idea. They think it's something worthwhile. It's something that they want to make happen, something that they think is worth them spending their money on. The second one is that they want the reward. Whatever it is that you're offering, it's going to benefit them in some way personally. Now, the sweet spot is where those two overlap. When you've got a really great idea that people can believe in and you're offering something really worthwhile in return. So we spoke just briefly then a moment ago about the extra funding that you can access through Crowdfunder. So we actually have £125,000 for artists and arts organisations in England, and you can get up to £20,000 pledged on your project, up to 50% of your target, directly through Crowdfunder. Now, how that works is you add your project and then you apply through the Crowdfunder platform for that funding, and that pledge will appear on your project just like any other pledge from any other member of the crowd. Now, if that sounds something that you might be eligible for, something which is quite interesting, and I'm sure it does, head to crowdfunder.co.uk/artists, and that's where you'll find the full criteria and more information on how that fund works and how you can access it. So this session is all about planning your project. It's about laying the foundation stones so that you have a really strong base on which to build your crowdfunding project. We're going to break it down into three main steps: making a plan, finding your skills, and figuring out who your crowd is and how you're going to access them. So first of all, I'm hoping that this will be familiar to some of you. This is from part 1, Planning Your Project, of our crowdfunding guide. That's available to download. It will be available to download beneath this video in the text box, or you can find it on the Eventbrite that you signed up to today if you haven't already had a look. What we have in there is an example of a checklist, one which is a really great foundation to start from, and of course, you can add things and maybe take things away if they're less relevant for your project. But that gives you a bit of structure for when you're putting together your crowdfunding project. Of course, it will build and probably adapt and change as we go along, but that's definitely the right place to start, is in that pack. Next, we move on to thinking about the skills that you need to have a successful crowdfund. Of course, this will vary from project to project, but we've identified 8 here, which you can find in the pack again, which we think are really key to making that happen. Now, the team behind a crowdfunding project is normally made up of 2 to 5 people. Many more than that, and you can find that there's a little bit of a too many chefs in the kitchen situation, and sometimes going it alone can be a little bit tough. It's good to have someone else to bounce ideas around with. So as you're the person here today watching this session, you're probably the project leader. You've probably got that bit ticked off. It might be that actually you can fill 1 or 2 or even 3 or 4 of the other roles as well. Have a think about your skills, which roles you can fill, and have a think about other people that you know that you can recruit in to fill those gaps where perhaps you don't necessarily have those skills, okay? And the final step, of course, is identifying your crowd. Now, going back to that fundraising pack again, there's a really fantastic template that you can use for doing network mapping. Now, this is the most important and useful exercise that you will do in this planning stage. If you get this bit right, everything else should fall into place pretty easily. So what we're doing is thinking about everyone that you know, that you have a connection with, that you can communicate with, that will be interested in backing this project. And what I've done here, I've done a little bit of an example of my own network map. I've started to put on some connections that I have in the press, some different groups and people that I know with really strong Instagram followings and groups that I'm a part of as well. And as you can see, actually, a bigger piece of paper is better. So grab as big a piece of paper as you can and have a go at starting to map out that network with people in your team. Again, it will grow, it will evolve, as you go through the various stages of getting your project together. But you can always refer back to this from then on in terms of creating rewards, thinking about your story and how you're going to reach out and communicate with those people. So this is really, really key. Once you've figured out who these people are, of course, there's a little bit of a stage of nurturing your crowd. Those of you who are familiar with the first part of the pack will recognise super backers and influencers from there. A super backer is someone who's going to contribute a bigger amount of money. Depending on your project, that might be £500, it might be £1,000, it might even be more than that. But those conversations can take a little bit longer. So don't wait for your project to go live to start talking to those people. Start as early as possible. Start warming them up to this idea. Same sort of thing goes for your influencers. Now, they're people who their support will help to open up doors for you. They're the opinion leaders. If you can get them on board, other people will follow. And you can probably already start to think of a couple of people that you know who probably fall into that bracket. So make them feel important, maybe even recruit them onto your crowdfunding team and make sure that they understand the importance of the role that they can play in unlocking those doors for you and helping to get the word out about your project. Similarly, with your personal contacts, existing supporters, people already in your network, tell them about it early. Don't wait for the project to go live to start engaging with them. It will make them feel valued, and it's a really great way of getting feedback on your project actually as well. Check that your social media profiles are in good shape and that your website is ready to direct people straight to your crowdfunding project. And get out there and do some networking. Find some relevant groups, particularly if your project is local. Get out locally, start meeting people, take some business cards and make sure that you're making those connections ready for when you go live. Worth me mentioning that there's a lot more information on nurturing your crowd and the different kind of things to do in that first pack on planning your project. So do make sure that you work your way through that. It's absolutely worthwhile. When you've made it this far, you're ready to add your project. You can do by clicking the Start Crowdfunding button from the Crowdfunder homepage. Doesn't mean that you have to go live, doesn't mean that people are going to see your page until you're ready. It just means that you can start working on your project page. Any questions at all? There's a couple of ways you can get in touch with us. You can reach me directly on Twitter, I'm @SammyMorger, or you can email in to support@crowdfunder.co.uk and someone here will be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Our next session is going to be at 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 6th of April, and it's going to be all about creating the perfect project page, which of course is super, super key to having a successful crowdfund. I hope that you found this session useful today. If you need to go back and watch any of it again, you're able to do that through YouTube. The video will be up there and available for you to watch back later. Please make sure that you read the second pack before the second session. It's so, so useful for you to do that. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.